Abdul, welcome back. It's game week 4 coming up. We're going to have a look at how you got on last week. We're going to have a look at what your plans are for next week at the end of the video. And in the middle, we're going to build a wildcard team and we're going to have a look at a few differentials. So players sort of 5% ownership or less if people are looking to catch their mates, albeit it's very early in the day. How was last week for you?
Not too good, John. I got 44 points and I fell from around about 38k to 180k. So it wasn't a disastrous game week, but not a good one. But overall, still really happy with that start. 180k after game week 3 is a really good start for me, I think.
It's a top start because I suppose what people need to realise is that there still is feasibly 9 million competitive managers trying. And as that number dwindles over the season, maybe 180k rank doesn't look quite as impressive. But for now, that's a really top start. Was there anything that surprised you in the week when you look at your team? Anything you regret? I can see Sanchez on the bench with 8 points, Andreas on the bench with 8 points. Are either of those things you wish you'd done differently, or was the decision sound?
No, I think the Andreas, I don't think he was one I was looking at playing, but Sanchez over the Ward, maybe I should have thought of that. I did think about that a bit, but then I just looked at the clean sheet odds and Leicester were a bit higher. But then, Brighton have been playing, immense this season, and Leicester, they've got a really weak defence. They haven't really kind of showed up from last season. They're not made any new signings. So I guess in hindsight, that was maybe one I should have thought about a bit more. But apart from that, I think the team was fine. I just, had a bad game with the defenders, with like most of the premiums. Yeah, most of the premiums scoring like 0-0-1. But yeah, I'm not too worried about that though. I think the defenders will come good.
Yeah, that's one of those things. I talked to Bakar yesterday on a video, and ultimately the big at the back hasn't paid really yet. We've had a couple of nice scores from the likes of James. Perisic, if people were persistent enough, did really well this week. I'd say that Cancelo had a good haul last week. Was it 11 points or something? But I mean, ultimately, particularly the Liverpool lads, Trent and Robbo, very disappointing. And now this week, for a lot of people who brought in Cucurella, and on top of that, James getting a 1-pointer, the City guys not doing great. There's a lot of nerves. There's a lot of nerves around the defence and maybe trying to take some cash out. Is that something you would consider?
No, not at all. Not after 3 game weeks. And to be honest, like people who are kind of panicking now, I think it'll just play into the hands of the guys who keep patient. So yeah, I mean, with the City defence, the Liverpool defence, Chelsea defence, they're going to keep, among the most clean sheets in the league over the season, and all the fullbacks are attacking potential as well. So I wouldn't be worrying about them just yet. Not at all. I mean, if this kind of trend continues, all the way until maybe game week 7 or 8, then maybe I'll start kind of worrying then. But no, not at all.
The last thing I want to point out about your team's the captaincy. We spoke last week. I said this Bakar as well. I was Gabriel Jesus. You said go Salah. I said not a hope. I went Jesus, and I have to say, again, I said it Bakar, I was very happy with the decision. Jesus looked amazing. Arsenal looked amazing. I think the decision was correct. Liverpool had a tough game. And I'm not going to say Salah was lucky to score, because ultimately winners make their own luck. He was in the right position.
Exactly.
He did really well to score. But it wasn't maybe a traditional Salah goal, let's put it that way.
No.
It felt a little luckier than usual, and I was gutted because I was really hoping he would have blanked, even though he was in my team due to captaincy.
No,
he scored.
You're totally right, and then Jesus was really unfortunate not to get anything else in that game as well. I think that offside goal was like, a toenail offside.
Millimeters.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it wasn't, as I said, it wasn't the wrong decision, but I think this is why I always really feel safer with Captain Salah. I mean, we've seen the goal; like he was the quickest to react out of everyone, and how quickly he reacted. So he is, like, over time, like, a really reliable option, and I think that's why I kind of always lean on him when it's maybe between 2 or 3 options.
We're going to have a look a bit later in the video at what your plans are coming into next week, and if you're hitting the panic buttons or anything. I doubt you are. But first, we're actually going to build a wildcard team over on the My Team feature on Fantasy Football Hub. Now, you might say it's quite early for a wild card, but ultimately I think this exercise is just kind of show us all your confidence in certain players. Do you still go big at the back? Do you not? Who do you go for in goal? Are we going for the Leicester lads, or are we veering from that? Are we going for a premium? I just think it's a really interesting exercise to see, like, if you can pick anyone, who you picking, and then ultimately we'll throw the differentials in afterwards and see how it looks. So do you want to talk us through it from back to front? Who are your goalkeepers?
Yeah, so the goalkeepers I'm going to go with is Sanchez and Ward. Reason being is that, Brighton have got a really strong defence. and they lost Cucurella and Bissouma this season, but that's not seemed to make a tad bit of difference. And if you look at the rotation, John, so if you're playing the wild card now, obviously you're going to have to be looking all the way up until game week 16 when you break off for the World Cup. And if you look at their fixtures, they pretty much rotate perfectly. I mean, you're going to play Sanchez for the next, up until game week 8. They've got great fixtures, and then in game week 9 and 10, Brighton have got Liverpool and Tottenham, whereas Leicester have got Nottingham Forest and Bournemouth. And then if you just look at the rotation all the way until game week 16, is pretty much perfect. Apart from game week 14, where Brighton have got Chelsea and Leicester have got Man City. Apart from that one game week, they rotate pretty much perfectly. So yeah, Sanchez and Ward look great value. I mean, a 4 million playing goalkeeper and a 4.5 million keeper who's playing for a defence, which will probably be, I'd say, in the top 5 or 6 defences coming into the season.
I'm actually interested to see if Ward is number 1 come September. I wonder, will Leicester nip in and buy a goalkeeper, or will they just sort of be happy with Ward until January at the earliest? Time will tell. In defence, I'm interested to see how much budget you're putting here. After obviously the last couple of weeks. So who's the first defender?
Okay, so I'll start from left to right. So I'll go Perisic. So Perisic is an interesting one, because if you're wildcarding, you're going to kind of rejig your whole team, so you can kind of set up your bench players as well. So we can kind of predict when Perisic will start and play. So if he starts in game week 4 against Nottingham Forest, then he's going to be benched in game week 5 against West Ham. And if you've got an Andreas Pereira, you can just play him instead of Perisic. Fulham have got a home fixture against Brighton in game week 5, and then in game week 6, Perisic is likely to start against Fulham at home. So you can kind of rotate him in that sense. And another spot I think would be, for me in that position, would be Cucurella. But at the moment I'm going to Perisic because of the upside and the fact that you can kind of predict his benching and when he starts. So I think the upside there is huge.
Yeah, I think that the risk with Cucurella, as much as I love having him and whatever else, I say I love having him, he did nothing for me the 1 week I've had him, but it's the Chilwell could come in out of nowhere, and that is always in the back of my mind. At least with Perisic it seems semi-predictable, and he looked amazing last week. Who's your second defender?
So it's Reece James. I just think, despite his 1-pointer against Leeds, I just think Chelsea's fixtures, if you look at their fixtures, all the way up until the wild card, can't go wrong. And again, if Chelsea aren't going to keep as many clean sheets as last season, they've still got James has still got immense attacking threat. So I mean, for 6 million, I just think he's still a lock in my team, and if I was wildcarding, he'd still be there.
Last week, Loftus-Cheek was playing kind of more advanced to the right, and James was kind of tuck him back in. Does that worry you, or is the heat map still sort of saying all you need to know?
No, it does, because Ruben Loftus-Cheek was playing as a right wing back, and James was playing as a right centre back. He started in the right centre back against in game week 2 as well, but when Tuchel made substitutions later on, he moved into the right wing back spot, and that's when he scored. So I'm hoping during the game, if he does start the right centre back, he does shift into a right wing back at times. But yeah, that is a bit of a worry. I'm not enough to get rid of him, but if that trend continues, for the next 2 or 3 game weeks, then he's probably an easy move to Cucurella. Who is mostly occupying that left wing back spot.
Who's your third defender?
Third defender is Trent Alexander-Arnold. So keeping the faith with him. I mean, if you look at his his underlying numbers, John, from game week 1 to 3, he's still the highest for chances created amongst defenders. XG and XA. So yeah, Liverpool haven't had the best start, but it's only a matter of time before they click into gear, and he's gonna be the top scoring asset overall, at that price range. So there's no way I'm getting rid of Trent just yet.
Yeah, he's the 26.9 predicted points is the most of any defender over the next 4 game weeks. Obviously Bournemouth and Newcastle, which could be trickier than it looks, Everton and Wolves, so some nice fixtures. And as you say, top in the charts for all those XAs, big chances created, attempted assists, all these sort of stats. I don't have them in front of me, but he's still top of the table and a lot of that in terms of defence, so it'll come good, you'd like to imagine. Significantly underperforming his expected output. Who's our fourth defender?
So it's João Cancelo. So again, keeping the faith.
So still keeping the faith in the big at the back.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, it's one game week where they've had a really bad result, and I just think the City defence is is going to be is the best defense in the league, and Cancelo's one of the best attacking defenders. So yeah, well, I mean, one game week shouldn't kind of put you off these players. I think looking at City's fixtures over again up until the World Cup, just amazing. And I don't think there's another kind of 7 million player asset who will kind of outscore him. So yeah, Cancelo's still in my team.
And is our fifth defender a starter or a bench player?
No, there's a fifth defender, so I'm going with Kyle Walker. The reason I'm going with him over Diaz is because Diaz was benched in the last match. I thought even that Diaz was the more nailed one over Walker, but Pep started John Stones ahead of him. Diaz should be kind of back nailed again with Ake out injured, but we don't know how long Ake is out for. It could be one game, and Walker seems to be kind of pretty safe in that full back spot. So, and for almost like 1 million less, you'd rather go with Walker over Diaz. Even if Walker does get kind of rotated over the next few games, it's easier taking that than a 5 million defender than a 6 million defender. So
I'm going to take a stab in the dark and say Mo Salah's in this team in midfield.
Of course, yeah. I mean, he's nailed no matter what. So yeah, Mo Salah, obviously, I think you'll kind of guess that. But yeah, I mean, don't need to speak much about Mo Salah and why I'm picking him, but yeah, he's definitely their number one midfielder.
32.6 points predicted over the next 4 is the most of any player, according to the tool here on my team. Who is your second midfielder? So
second one is Gabriel Martinelli. He's got up to like 6.4 million now, John. He's getting more and more popular, and rightly so. He's up to 6. He's returned in every single game so far. And if you look at his stats, John, for his chance creation and his kind of shots in the box, he is. The output justifies his stats. So he's gonna carry on that run of form, and at that price, even at 6.4 million, grossly underpriced.
Grossly underpriced. Does Gross make the team?
No, he doesn't.
No, he doesn't.
Yeah, I mean,
that would have been a nice segue. Who's next?
It would have been. But yeah, I mean, he doesn't make the team, but he's still a good asset. But I think for a wild card, so my third defender is Luis Diaz. Again, keeping the faith. If you look at Liverpool's fixtures, they've got Bournemouth next, and then they've got a great run coming up. And I still don't think there's another an £8 million midfielder better than Luis Diaz just now. The reason being is that because of Jota being out injured and Nunez being suspended for the next few games, his minutes look more secure than ever. I think once Jota and Nunez are back, then yeah, we're probably going to have to look to move him on. But there's so many other 8 million midfielders out there, and the likes of like Mount and Saka, who will come good, have dropped in price as well. So I mean, I think stick with Diaz right now. And once the team is back fully fit, we can look to move him on.
Yeah, he comes out top of 8 million or less midfielders for predicted points over the next 4 weeks, 24.1 points. Who is our fourth midfielder?
Okay, so the fourth and fifth midfielders are 4.5 million midfielders. So I've got Andreas Pereira. Obviously, he is the best 4.5 million player in the game. I mean, if you look at his stats, John, he's created the most chances among the Fulham team. He's got the highest XA. He's on corners. He's on free kicks. He's pretty much the equivalent of, I'd say, a 6 million or 6.5 million midfielder if you're looking at his stats. So yeah, he's. I mean, usually a 4.5 million midfielder, John, is somebody that we always put on the bench. But I think with Pereira, he is perfectly capable of making our starting 11s. Which is why I'm kind of taking the risk on Perisic, because I think that Pereira is a very able substitute. When Perisic gets benched, yeah, Pereira is the fourth midfielder, and I've gone for Lavia from Southampton for the fifth midfielder. Again, I think he's played 90 minutes every single game so far. He's not got much attacking threat, but I think he might pick up on a goal or assist throughout the season. But again, when you're looking at a bench player like that, you just want the minutes there, and he's got that.
Sound. So we're going up top. Who is our cheapest forward?
The cheapest is I've gone for Greenwood. So I think Archer was the most popular one that we all went for, but there's kind of talks about him going to Watford on loan. So he probably won't be eligible anymore, and so if you're on a wild card, I think Greenwood's the next best option if you're looking at minutes.
Unreal. And then I'm going to have a stab that you've got Gabriel Jesus and then a premium guy.
Yeah, so I've gone Jesus. I mean, you've seen yourself, he is again so underpriced at 8 million. If you're looking at his stats and his, he's that type of forward who he's got a high kind of XG and XA. He creates chances. He'll score goals, and in that Arsenal team, they're looking fantastic at the moment. And there's a reason why he's 80% owned. It's because he's a great asset, and FPL
Yeah.
have really underpriced him.
Yeah, he's absolutely. I thought he would be very good going to Arsenal. I thought he would fit. I just didn't think it would be this explosive from the start. To be honest, it's insane what he's doing, and he looks so good on that team.
Yeah.
And he was so unlucky last week not to get one or two. But even for the first goal, he did all the legwork and got none of the points. Who are you going for, Kane or Haaland? Because obviously a lot of people are on Haaland. A couple of nice fixtures, but then a lot of people are thinking about switching to Kane for the more nailedness, as 3 fixtures a week is coming up.
Yeah, I think I'd start with Haaland, but because it's an easy move to Kane. So the next few fixtures for City are good, and we know that we saw Pep's quotes about him saying that Haaland won't play every game once Champions League starts. So we don't know whether he means that whether Alvarez will get the Champions League games or whether he'll swap around. But I think if that time comes, it's an easy move to Kane. So yeah, I'd still stick with Haaland. He's got. I think his goal scoring stats, trump Kane's by a long margin. But obviously Kane has the higher assist threat. But I still think stick with Haaland for now, and then move to Kane when the Champions Leagues and Europe comes around the corner. So that's probably around about Gameweek 5 or 6. We'd probably be looking at that move.
I love it. Let's see how we do. Obviously, it's got a minus 0.5 price here, but it's assuming you're wild carding out of a team that's gained a little bit of value, or you might have to tinker accordingly. But maybe that's where the differentials we're about to look at come in. Let's see how this one does. So Abdul, this team would get a predicted 74.3 points, game week rating of 94%, and a team rating looking up to 5 weeks ahead of 96%. I've left the captaincy on Salah. So if you had to build a team, this is what you'd build. It looks like a lot of our teams, I dare say, a lot of us would have the James Trent Cancelo at least at the back. Sanchez, obviously, a lot of people have Ramsdale or other. Walker and Perisic owned by a lot of people as well. Martinelli, Salah, Jesus and Haaland owned by almost all the game who are actively playing it. And Luis Diaz, the kind of Luis Diaz or Robertson. This draft has Diaz. So a lot there that people can kind of take or try and adjust their moves to get into this sort of position. Now that we've built that team, let's have a look at a few differentials people might want to throw in. And we're going to look at them in terms of most owned to the most differential. And the first one you suggest at a time of recording is an ownership of 5.3%, and it's Raheem Sterling at Chelsea.
Yeah, so I think Sterling has obviously he's only had 1 assist so far, in his Chelsea career, but I think he is going to come good, very soon, and I think he's got a great fixture this week against Leicester, to make that happen, and then he's got Chelsea have got decent fixtures going ahead as well. I mean, he's just such a proven FPL asset, John. He's got 78 goals and 54 assists in his last 5 seasons in the league. So I mean, he is gonna. I think he's gonna be the top scorer in the attack. Yeah. So Sterling, and he's been playing a lot more further forward than Havertz as well. If you look at his average position maps, he's been playing, as the most, in most of the games, he's been playing as the most advanced player. So, yeah, he's going to get, I think, plenty of attacking returns. And out of that Chelsea attack, I think, he will be the highest scorer.
The next player you've picked is one that, was the man of last season. He's playing on a struggling team at the minute, but you've put down Jared Bowen at 4% ownership.
Yeah, so Bowen was more of a... For me, he's more of like a gut pick. For me, I think he got like 12 goals and 17 assists last season, and I don't think he's turned into a poor player overnight. And same as West Ham, I just think they're going through a bad patch, and I think that they will come good eventually. And I think this week against Aston Villa, who have also been poor this season, I think that's kind of a match where he can kind of stamp his authority and announce himself for this season. So he's if you looked at his stats last season, John, again for goals and assists, it was right up there. He had a 200-point plus season. He's one that I'm kind of it's more of a gut feel, but I think the stats from last season back up as well.
We'll see how that one goes. Again, these are differentials. So The next differential we have at 3% is Brian Mbeumo at Brentford.
Yeah, so I just think Brian Mbeumo, he's only 6 million, right? So I think if you can't stretch Tyven Toney, he is a totally fine alternative to him. He's played every single game so far. He's not a rotation risk at the moment, and Brentford's fixtures all the way up until game week 12 are immense. They don't play, any of last season's top 4 until game week 12. And you've seen them so far this season. They're scoring really freely. They lost Eriksen, which many thought would impact them, but clearly hasn't. So yeah, Mbeumo, and he's got Tony there as well, who's going to be providing him assists. So yeah, I really like him at that price, and I think if he could be a very viable third option for the forward spot.
The next one you have was on fire last week. Big score. It's Jack Harrison, 2.4% ownership.
Yeah, and if you look at his ownership, John, it's quite surprising. But he's another one who's returned in every single fixture so far this season. And if you look at his kind of attacking returns over the last few seasons, he's hit double-digit returns for attacking returns, and he's got goals and assists in his locker. At the moment, he's actually created the second most chances in the league, with the second highest XA. So he's created 12 chances with an XA of 1.67. He's like the main, he's a puppet master, for Leeds in that midfield. He's on set pieces as well, so he's going to get plenty of assists. And Leeds look like a much better side. It's quite funny because they lost, two of their best players in, Calvin Phillips and Rafinha, but they look a better side this season than they did last season. So, yeah, they beat Chelsea 3-0. Impressive, and again, great fixtures coming up. So I think he'll do really well, and I don't think there's a better 6 million option than him right now, to be honest.
And your most differential pick, 1.6% ownership, is Danny Welbeck. 6.5 million, some nice fixtures to come, and he's looked good.
He's looked really good, and most importantly, he's played 90 minutes in all 3 of the games. Historically, his problem has been, John, that he's been quite injury prone. If you look at his kind of minutes over the last 10 seasons, he's never really kind of had that sustained run. But when he's been fit, he's a good option, and at the moment he seems fit. He's as I said, he's playing every game. Neil Maupay, seems to be on his way out. He's not. I don't think he's officially left yet, but he's not getting back into that team. And for some reason or another, Graham Potter has not really been using Dennis Undav, so he seems to be trusting Danny Welbeck. He's got an assist so far, but I think if you look at his stats and the fact that he's playing up front for Brighton on his own and he's getting a lot of minutes, he will get good attacking returns. If you look at those fixtures, he's got Leeds at home, Fulham, Leicester, Bournemouth and Crystal Palace up until game week 8. You can't really ask for a better on the fixtures, I think, from an attacking point of view.
Now that's the wildcard team and the differentials. Let's have a look at your team and what you're thinking for this weekend. So this is your team and my team, 94% game week rating, predicted to get 74 points. I dare say you would take that before the game week starts, would you?
Yeah, that seems quite high. I think, especially after this week, John, I'd probably take that, yeah.
How many transfers have you in the bank?
I've got 2 transfers in the bank, John. I don't know if you know this, but
burnt one last week,
I did, yeah. So I burnt one because I didn't really see a move to make, John. And honestly, I mean, looking at that team, right, look at that. There's all 11 of my players are playing at home. Honestly, again, I can't really see a transfer to make. I mean, I think last week I considered Gabriel to Cucurella, but I think that's off the table now because, Cucurella's went up in price. I also considered Diaz to Walker. Again, with Ake being out now, if he's out for like a long period of time, then, that totally nails Diaz. I mean, otherwise, I probably would have made that move. But yeah, I mean, I guess, Archer to Greenwood, is another one that, because Archer's likely going away on loan. Again, I said this last week, it's just the way that FPL have priced the players. It's just, it's ridiculous that we can have a squad like that, within 100 million budget. So at the moment, I could very easily kind of burn again. But I think it's mad, I know. But game week 4, and I still
that's confidence right there, isn't it?
I don't. I mean, I guess I've got a wee bit of luck and I've picked a really good team, with no problems, no injury problems or anything like that, up until now. But I guess my kind of top 2 transfer options, I would say, would be probably at the moment either Diaz to Walker or Archer to Greenwood.
Yeah.
And
I was going to say that with a 4.5 forward. I think because you obviously mentioned Archer and Greenwood earlier, if you're going to burn one, that's probably what you do anyway. Mm-hmm. But then with Diaz, I suppose the thing with him, as you say, as well as he was the first thing I looked at in your team, I was like, okay, well, he's obviously going to get rid of Diaz, but he's had his rotation. Ake is injured, so you could almost argue that he's as nailed as he's ever been right now.
Yeah, and it'd be totally typical for me to do Diaz and Walker, and then Walker gets benched in the next game. So, I mean, he's not had his kind of turn yet, has he really? So we just can't predict Pep. I mean, I never thought Diaz would get rotated, in game week 3.
What about if I was to throw at you Saliba for Gabriel? You'd save the 0.4 million. You'd have a bit of wiggle room in the bank there. Then whatever about the goal, because obviously that's not going to happen every week. You could see them almost like for like. You're saving a few quid. Or do you see it differently?
Yeah, you know what? This was, again, it's hindsight, but I think that was probably the move I should have made last week, because I think they're as nailed as each other. I think Gabriel, despite Saliba's goal, I think that was his second goal in his whole career. Despite the goal, I think Gabriel has still got the highest goal threat. But when you take that 0.5 into consideration, then I think Saliba's just as good an option. Again, that was something that I thought of last week, but I didn't consider it too much because I just had that kind of thought in my head of Gabriel being the higher goal threat. It'd be quite annoying to make that move this week, to be honest. Now that Saliba's risen one by 0.1, but yeah, I totally see how that could I totally see that as a good move as well, and one that I very well may make. It's just that Gabriel has got the higher goal threat. That's the only thing that's kind of put me off that.
Yeah,
but, how many?
I suppose you're weighing up. Is that goal threat worth 0.4 million?
Exactly.
Next week, you never know what could happen. Someone could get injured, and you could be looking for 0.2, and then you've burnt the transfer. That's the game.
Yeah, it's a tough one this week. I think I really don't want to burn a transfer for the second game week in a row.
Yeah. Well, look, best of luck. Everyone, thanks for watching. If you want to sign up the Fantasy Football Hub, use the link in the description, and you can head over and have a tinker with this My Team tool. And do drop us a like on your way out and subscribe to the channel. See you later.